we're starting to get some indications of when the comic industry is going to be back up and going. And August? Really? That's not going to be good. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I just want to inject here. That's called the tease hook to get people into the video. I don't know why I'm doing that. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so there's at least some word going out to publishers. And in particular, this does not seem to be every publisher that they're going to start accepting new content. Diamond is going to start accepting new projects to distribute in August. Now, a couple things to this. I've gotten word, have not gotten confirmation, so consider this a rumor, that there is some tiering being done, meaning, and by tiering, I mean some of the bigger publishers will get out the gate earlier. And this may seem unfair, it probably is unfair, but it also is maybe a bit pragmatic. So a lot of companies right now are setting pretty long windows of when things could reopen or resume. In the travel industry, there's a bunch of requirements saying we're going to do a 100-day ban on various things. But in that same paragraph, it says if conditions improve, that could be lifted. I think that a lot of these things will be lifted because conditions are improving slowly, or at least we're seeing a flattening, as we say, of the curve of this virus situation. But the other piece is the economic pressures are building up and building up. And by the time we get to 30 days from now, I mean, at the beginning of May, if things are not starting to show a clear plan for opening up and quickly, you're going to see a lot of revolt. Even though this is a tough situation, being broke and having massive bankruptcy around the country is also a situation. So they're playing a little bit of chicken. They're trying to figure out, I think the hope is if we say things very extreme, then maybe people will take it seriously, buckle down, and things will come back to normal, or as normal as things can get. But so Diamond is at least sending some indication that it could be until August. There also kind of has that same caveat of could be earlier. Diamond is trying to basically set the most definitive word it can. Knowing that it can't commit to things too aggressively, they're setting that big window for itself. And also there is this expectation of there are a lot of comics that are in the warehouse already that just haven't been distributed. They've been printed or they've been delivered. And so there's backlog that they also have to deal with. So the timing had always been at sometime in late June, or at least what we'd heard in the past was that late June comics would start to move again. And so given that, this idea that it might take 4 weeks or so, which takes us to late July or August, does seem like a reasonable estimate. And when I say reasonable, I mean like a accurate estimate. None of this is reasonable, don't get me wrong. So what does all this mean for comic stores and other things? Well, it means that comic shops, provided that the numbers start to track down and the virus, we start getting our hands around it and we start getting back to business and states start opening back up in bulk, it means that comic shops are probably sometime in May, June, starting to open for business. Some new comics start to flow out, hopefully in June, that were in the warehouse already in stock. But at the same time, a lot of publishers are actively looking to move. We've already heard that DC is looking for other sources of distribution. We've heard similar kind of comments in the background from people like IDW. Image has not said anything official, but enough people on the back channels have shown that they're looking. Maybe not the people who have that authority, but at least something is going on. We've heard Todd McFarlane talk about the importance of finding other distribution channels. Alterna Comics gave the announcement that they're going to cancel all solicitations with Diamond and go direct. The other thing that a lot of small publishers, and I want to make it clear, I'm not saying this is Alterna's case, may or may not have been, that's Peter's business. But a lot of the smaller publishers are looking at a situation where there's a belief that Diamond might start enforcing their 3,000 copy cutoff. They haven't, they've let that slide for a lot of different reasons. And they haven't always been fair about that approach either. The small publishers are at the mercy of a lot of rules that Diamond sometimes pays attention to and sometimes does not. So anything could happen. And if you're a small publisher, you would be very, very smart to aggressively be looking for other options and to get yourself out of being reliant on Diamond. Because one, you don't know about Diamond's long-term viability. Two, you don't know if they start clamping down and just going to their bread and butter of the 90% of the market, which really is, for publishers. So if you're not in the 4 publisher list, you got to believe that your future may be in some jeopardy, and you have to start looking elsewhere. And so I think there's, again, Peter and Alterna and other companies, by the way, are all trying to find their own way here and figure out the best thing they can do. But at least the current news looks like fully back to quote unquote normal, of a full volume of new comics being accepted to Diamond and then distributed out to shops, is looking like late July, August, which is a long time from now. What happens to the comic industry? What happens to shops? A lot of them close, bluntly. A lot of shops, no matter what people have said online and other things, are reliant on new comics. And if they don't have those new comics, they've got to pay rent somehow, and a lot will stop. A lot that were struggling and trying to figure out what this year was going to look like in terms of a turnaround are going to just say, okay, clear sign, it's time to stop. On the convention front, we're a long ways away from having conventions again. And conventions have 2 problems. One, a big number of the conventions are in states or regions that are particularly hammered. San Diego Comic-Con, we haven't gotten an official word on it, but that convention is not going to go forward based on California's current restrictions. Governor Newsom and what he's doing, that's just not going to happen. They're not going to have 100,000 people plus kind of clog that hall with this all going on. So they're going to have to go virtual. They're going to have to do something else. Maybe San Diego Comic-Con will use this as an opportunity to kind of broaden out and change big fundamental issues that they've had with their convention and get things to a better spot. That's always possible, and I'm hoping they do. But other conventions around the country, even if you're in a region like Texas, I heard from Tim Lim earlier around conventions in Texas, you may have the ability to open up and run a convention, but the problem is you're likely not going to get a lot of attendance. And when I say that, I want to caveat, not by the fans. The fans who are in Texas will go. The challenge is that you've got to get creators in there, many who live in the LA area or the California area and New York, or places like Portland and Seattle, all 4 of which are being brutalized right now by this virus and have various travel restrictions and quarantines come in place. You're also going to have retailers that economically are suffering. So they're going to want to buy into a convention, buy a spot on the floor. They're not. So where are the economics coming from for people to go? If you can't count on creators being present at the show, then are fans going to buy a ticket? So there's this trickle-down effect that means that conventions are in some pretty dire straits until we start seeing crowds places again. And unfortunately, that's probably well into the fall, which means that the whole 2020 comic convention circuit is probably pretty dead. But here's hoping. But that's the current state of what's going on in the comic industry right now. August. I mean, that is a bitter pill to swallow, and unfortunately, a lot of bad things are going to happen, and you're going to have to see a lot of consolidation within the comic industry, both on the publisher level and the retailer level, just to survive. And certainly this distribution, even if people do not find an alternative to Diamond between now and August, it'll be hard to, with printers and other things being closed. This is the end for the one-party distribution system. Whether the end comes this year, probably won't. It will come next year. It's not going to hold. So that's the current news and where things are at. Hopefully it comes in better, and hopefully the next video I do on this has better news and happier news. Here's hoping. Stay safe out there. Hey, if you're new to this channel, please like, subscribe. Please subscribe. I appreciate having you here, and it's really great that you are. Leave a comment below. Find me on Twitter at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.